Hello everyone, it's Dylan from Yu-Gi-Oh! Everything, and welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh! Theory. I have not done a theory video in a long time, and I have a really interesting theory that I want to share with all of you, and so that's what we are going to do in this video. What if I told you that Kaiser, or Zane Truesdale in the GX dub, met an unfortunate end in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 anime? Although if you ask the survivors of the Heartland attacks, the survivors will tell you he got exactly what he deserved. But what was maybe the most unfortunate part of Zane's story in Arc 5 is that we as the viewer may have missed out on one of the best duels of all time that was fully off screen. Yes, I am proposing that I know what happened to Kaiser during his role in the story of Arc 5. It is also very important to note, for those that have not seen Arc 5, that the legacy characters which appear in Arc 5, Asuka, Edo, Crow, Jack, are different than the ones from GX and 5Ds. Same name, similar personality, same design, but completely different backstories and ultimately completely different characters. I hope you all hear me out. Let me know your thoughts on this, and most importantly, enjoy the video. Let's begin. So we need to start with some basic information. If you never saw Arc 5 or was a casual fan of the anime and not a crazy fan like I am, you are probably a little confused. Wait a second, Dylan. Zane Truesdale never appeared in Arc 5. He was never even mentioned by name. And well, you would be right, but we do know for a fact that Zane was in this universe. Furthermore, I believe the Kaiser played a very big role before the events of Arc 5 took place. In episode 116, Yugioh is on his frantic search for Rin. It's actually the episode where he finally reunites with Rin at the end. At the beginning of this episode, Yugioh is transported to a class taking place at Academia. Yugioh makes his classic "it's Yugioh not fusion" joke and rides out of the classroom. The important thing about this scene is in the fine details. We see a board behind the professor with a good amount of writing on it. Well, translated, this is the goldmine of information that gives birth to this theory. You can even make out his name buried in the kanji, Ryo Marufuji. The board states that he was, quote, a legendary duelist from Duel Academy's past, and was also known to play Overlord Fusion in order to summon Chimera Tech Rampage Dragon and Gatling Dragon, safe to assume two of his ace monsters in this universe. Alright, so for those that were confused about Zane Truesdale not even being in Arc 5, that was your quick recap. Unfortunately, we do not have anything else about him, which I always thought was insane. I mean, to mention Zane and not show him or mention him at all is crazy to me. This was not a one-off character from a prior series. This was Kaiser. This was one of the most popular and one of the most well-known characters of the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX era. Maybe there were plans to utilize him later in the show and they just didn't, but I actually believe the reason they did this was for us to put the story of Ryo Marufuji together. And that's exactly what I am about to do. Tell the story of why Ryo Marufuji has to be dead before Arc 5 begins. So, we know that Academia led a brutal invasion on Heartland. We have our 4 dimensions, all based off of summoning mechanics, Fusion being one of them. The Xyz dimension was the one Fusion decided to attack first. Now, these attacks came well before the story of Arc 5 begins. We see Yuto make his debut very early on, meaning before that first episode where Yuya Pendulum summons, it is safe to assume that the war in Xyz has taken place and has gone on for some time now. We also know that Edo, or Aster Phoenix in the dub, was chosen to be Commander-in-Chief for the invasion. Edo had a massive role in deciding who would be top-ranking officials for his team and for the invasion. We know this because we see him ask Sora if he would be willing to join the fight when he graduated. Sora declined. Throughout GX, mainly towards the end of GX, Edo and Kaiser had a very interesting relationship. While they might not have been the best of friends, I always felt that the two had immense respect for each other. I believe that Zane was one of the first duelists Edo approached and asked to fight with him and help him lead the invasion on the Xyz dimension. And I believe Ryo Marufuji, knowing everything we know about him and his tendencies from GX to go a little over the top, would have easily said yes. Remember, it was very rare for someone from Academia to defect. Asuka did, but most people that fought in the war for Academia believed in the task at hand, mainly because of brainwashing from an early age, but still, we also know that Academia referred to Ryo as a legendary duelist, and that is extremely important. Academia would never even think of calling Asuka or anyone who defected from Fusion a legend. Ryo was revered this way because he gave everything he had for the Fusion dimension. Even the wording of the scripted message the teacher is teaching to the students is interesting, right? He was a legendary duelist from the past. The past in this sentence makes me convinced that Ryo is no longer with us and has passed away. I don't think it can be interpreted as, oh, well, maybe he just no longer duels for Academia, or maybe he defected. Because remember, in this dictatorship regime that Leo Acaba leads, they would never be glorifying a duelist who ran away from the war or ran away from the Fusion Dimension's ideals. This is really where the basis of this theory all stems from, and I want to take this time to drill this point into everyone's heads. In a dictatorship, there is usually state-run media. All news, and especially school teachings, it all has to get approved from the government, or in this case, Leo Acaba and top officials at Academia. It's no coincidence that Ryo Marufuji was the duelist chosen to be the martyr that they are teaching young boys and girls to idolize at a very young age. Why? Because he died fighting for his country, or in this case, his dimension. It is such a safe and common option to choose someone who is dead to talk so highly about, especially in a dictatorship government. The main reason for that is because this person, the subject of who you're supposed to grow up and be like, is dead. That person can no longer choose actions that make your teaching seem foolish. For instance, if Edo Phoenix or Sora or Yuri were chosen as the figureheads to teach the students about, it's so much riskier because they're all still alive. You run the risk of that person going AWOL or betraying Academia, or heck, even just running away and in a sense being a coward by choosing to run and not fight. Zane was a perfect person to try and brainwash these kids into idolizing because he led a perfect Academia soldier life. He always believed in the values of Fusion's teachings. He fought on the battlefield and was a fantastic mercenary in the Heartland War, and then eventually he died for Academia's causes. Another piece of evidence that backs up the fact that the Kaiser is no longer around is that Leo Acaba makes no effort to try and get him back while the Lancers were leading their march through XZs and then eventually into the Fusion Dimension. We see Leo Acaba try all these preventative measures. He calls on the Tyler twins to try and stop the Lancers. He gets the Battle Beast and the elite students to try and stop them. Hell, he even lets this creepy doctor brainwash the Bracelet Girls to get them to fight against Yugioh and Co. as well. Do you really think that if Ryo was around, Leo Acaba wouldn't reach out to him for help at all? And this all goes back to why Ryo must be dead at this point, because if he was still alive and was on bad terms with Acaba Leo, or defected and stopped fighting for Fusion, then there is no way in hell they would be calling him a legendary duelist in the propaganda they are feeding to their kids. There's just no way. It doesn't align with everything that we know about the Fusion Dimension and about Academia. So to recap, if Zane was still alive, he absolutely would have been called on and utilized by Leah to stop Yugioh, just like the Tyler twins were, just like the Battle Beast was, the Doctor, it goes on and on. So, Zane Truesdale, Hell Kaiser, died before the events of Arc 5 began. But at the hands of whom? Ladies and gentlemen, we are now entering the second part of this theory. I believe I know exactly who was the one that defeated and ultimately carded Hell Kaiser. You may have known him as a numbers hunter in Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal, but in the world of Arc 5, he was simply a man driven to rage thanks to the attacks on his homeland. That is the one, the only, Kaito Tenjou. I believe Kaito was the man who was able to put an end to Zane's tyranny and take out one of the most incredible duelists Academia had on their front lines. This would of course mean that the duel between Ryo Marufuji and Kaito Tenjou is easily the greatest duel that we as the viewer never got to bear witness to. Talk about the audience getting robbed. But anyway, we know Kaito is one of the only duelists that is capable of beating Zane. I would give him, maybe Yuto, and maybe Shun a legitimate chance to take down one of the strongest duelists from the GX era. Kaito is also known for carding many of the duelists he came across. While Yuto and Shun showed extreme disdain for Academia, I'm not sure if Yuto would have carded anyone after hearing Rory's words during the initial attack. Kaito makes his on-screen debut by carding 3 3 Obelisk Force soldiers, showing how callous he has become because of the war. Furthermore, everyone at Academia knows immediately who Kaito is when they first encounter him during episode 109. Take a look at the reactions of Academia soldiers when Kaito saves Yuya mid-duel. That's the wanted man Kaito. It's clear that everyone knows who Kaito is. And while it could be a simple, well, he's carded so many Obelisk Force members, of course he's wanted and well known. I like to think that it might be a little deeper than that. I mean, Kaito is not the only surviving member in Heartland. Think about Shun, Yuto, the other Resistance members. I'm sure they have taken out many Obelisk Force members as well. I believe that Kaito has this massive target on his back because he eliminated someone of great importance, and it just so happens that Zane is most likely eliminated in the early stages of the war. I believe Kaito is the most wanted man on Academia's hit list because he carded and killed off one of the most beloved fusion soldiers there is. Here's another really interesting thing to think about. We know that Dennis was used as a spy in Heartland before giving the green light for the invasion. He used Xyz monsters throughout Arc 5 to try and convince people he was a good guy and not from fusion. Well, guess who else has Xyz monsters in their deck? Ryo Marufuji. Cyber Dragons are one of the few GX archetypes that has Xyz support, and so what if Zane was also a spy ordered to scout out Heartland before the war begins? Once the war began, an outraged Kaito tracked down Zane and defeated him in what I'm sure was an incredible duel, carding him in the process. We know that Kaito comes to regret the decision of carding the many people that he defeated, so his victory over Ryo Marufuji symbolizes his initial anger and bloodthirst at the situation. But you know what Dennis, the other definitive traitor, represents? His regret. Remember who ultimately defeats the traitor Dennis? Kaito. And so, I am proposing that Kaito is the one who defeated the 2 Academia spies, one at the beginning of his rage-induced quest, and one after his anger has subsided and the feeling of regret kicked in. And so, the Kaiser, Zane, Ryo, one of the best and most memorable duelists from the GX era, does have a story to tell in Arc 5. Unfortunately, it is a story that cannot be seen or watched by the viewer. And although it would have been amazing to see an insane Ryo Marufuji take on a pissed-as-hell Kaito, it's a duel which took place in canon that we will never be able to bear witness to. But hey, that's just a theory. A Yu-Gi-Oh! Theory. Thanks for watching. All kidding aside, I'm sorry, I do apologize. I always end my theory videos that way. But yeah, that is my theory video about Ryo Marufuji, Zane Truesdale, Hell Kaiser, whatever you want to call him, his journey and his story in Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5. I think there is a good amount of evidence that points to him being dead, that points to him being in a place that is inaccessible for Leo Acaba to contact him while still being revered as a legendary duelist, which him being carded in the Heartland War would fit that billing, right? Leo Acaba can't call on him. He was still in good standings with Leo Acaba and everyone from Fusion, and that's the person they chose to try and brainwash these kids to be like. I think it makes a lot of sense. Whether Kaito was the one who defeated him or not, that's a little more difficult to prove, but Kaito was one of the strongest duelists from Zexal. He's one of the only duelists that I give a genuine shot to beat Ryo Marufuji from the entire Yu-Gi-Oh! Universe, so I think it does make sense in that regard as well. But guys, let me know all your thoughts on this theory video. I had a blast working on this video, and I really do hope you enjoyed. Be sure to go to my channel to check out other theories that I have, and to check out other Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime-related videos. Love all of you. A special thank you to my Platinum tier patrons, Alexa Baker, Glen McGookin, Jorge Carrillo, Horace Maye, Goosey Q, Vincent Van Der Veen, Panther J, Smith620, Jorge Leon, Blue Maiden 28, Jarrett Buller, and Gabe G, and to my Diamond tier patrons Jesse Wood, Latrell Smith, Sean, and Melinda Phantom, and to my Egyptian God tier patron, Syn Cloud. Thank you to everyone who supports me over on Patreon. I cannot tell you how much I truly appreciate it. Thank you to everyone who is a channel member as well, and thank you to everyone who just watches these videos. Without you guys, I would not be able to do this. I will talk to you all down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have an amazing day.
"ダメじゃない